Welcome to Nashville Realtors podcast with Brandon Hanna Properties, discussing everything you need to know for Nashville real estate. And here are your hosts for Nashville's Realtor, Brandon Hanna and Alec Lehman, your experts in everything Nashville real estate.
Guys, welcome back to another Nashville's Realtor podcast with Brandon Hanna, Alec Lehman. We're still here. COVID-19 hasn't wiped us out yet. I'm just kidding.
Keyword.
Hey, listen, I know there's a lot of people that are hurting out there. There's a lot of things going on in the economy. There's a lot of questions that we're getting. So we're going to use this segment to kind of address our current economic times. But this is going to apply to any time. The recession in 2008, I mean, some of these big economic turmoil times that we've ridden out, we saw opportunities on both sides of the spectrum. So we kind of wanted to share with you our perspective a little bit.
Yeah, and you know, being a real estate professional, we get phone calls from people that are wanting to sell or maybe thinking about selling, and then on the opposite side, buyers that were looking for a house, and now through all this craziness, should we pump the brakes? Should we keep going? And then just overall questions, what's the market going to do? Can I find deals? Should I pump the brakes? Should I keep going? What do we do?
Yeah.
So, and I feel like that's not just in real estate, but in every single, part of our lives. Everybody's like, what do we do next? Like you had talked about the stock market, the volatility, we can make our predictions, but nobody really knows what it's going to do. So we're here to kind of share what we've seen and then what we kind of think is going to happen here kind of as it's phasing out. Things have started to open up a little bit more. People are finally going out and we went to a restaurant the other day, all the servers had masks on, but we were just sitting there like, oh, it's so nice to just have somebody
finally
serve us. I was like, it's like so nice. You sound so spoiled, but it was so fun to get out and, obviously stay safe and, do all your precautions before and after. And, they ask you questions and everything as you go in. But as things kind of start to open up, we've been getting all these questions. So we're going to kind of hopefully answer some.
It's nice for life to kind of go back to normal. Mm-hmm. I did a quick video a few weeks back when this whole thing started. And one of the main questions we were getting at that point was, what's going to happen with our deals that are currently under contract? I mean, our lender's going to keep lending. We had so many unknowns. Nobody knew. Do we ask our mortgage companies for a forbearance or a deferment? We're in the middle of a contract yet to close. What's going to happen? Yeah. The good news is everybody's doing the same thing they've always been doing in a different format. I think it's going to restructure how we get our jobs done. Appraisers are still are still doing their job as appraising. Lenders doing their job. Underwriters are working from home. Realtors, we're still out there showing houses. There have been some sellers that didn't want to show during this time with people coming in and out, but we've set up protocol for that. Hand sanitizer, taking off your socks and shoes, being cautious not to touch things throughout the house.
Wiping down the light switches and knobs and stuff as you kind of go through.
I showed a property recently. They had a nice little setup that with Purell and a little sign that said, hey, we have a high-risk child in our house. Please be cautious not to touch anything that you don't have to touch.
Nice.
So you're just, you're not thinking about touching the countertops as you walk by. Makes you a little more cautious. So honestly, all this is probably good for cleanliness as a whole. All right, so back to real estate though. One of the questions we're getting a whole lot is, are there buying opportunities? Now, we're not going to be able to address all the specifics on this quick little podcast, but this economic turmoil has not been long-lasting enough to really cause an uptick in foreclosures or short sales like we saw in 2009 and 10 post-recession. But
can I ask?
Yes,
so
please.
As of you, I would think, why is that? What's the difference between this one and that one? And it was the appraisers and all that. It was, so kind of explain that if you don't mind.
Okay, so
why is this different than that one?
That's a great question. One of the things that triggered the recession was a huge downturn in the stock market. Well, we saw that here a few weeks ago. However, what followed was the stock market continuing to crash, and people that needed to sell had to reduce their price to get a buyer. Now, that's not happening yet. Could it if this continues? Sure. But that was long lasting enough, 2 or 3, 4 months into it, where during the recession, if I needed to sell because I had a job change, let's say, not even lost my job, I just needed to move out of state. Well, there was so much inventory on the market and so little demand that I had to drop my price down substantially to get a buyer. Well, then you mentioned appraisals. So then that comp factors the next appraisal and so on and so forth. So that downward trend tends to snowball into more of a downward trend.
Yeah.
What's been interesting here is we've had sellers ask us, hey, I'm thinking about selling, is now a good time? My answer has been, you would think it would be no, let's wait until this is over. However, our buyer demand has really stayed significant here.
That's so true. And I think our sellers, they're a little bit more timid, right? They've got, I feel like, a lot more to lose maybe. They're maybe not as risk averse, but the buyers, I feel like I'm still on the same amount of showings that maybe in the beginning where everybody had to stay at home.
Yeah.
But now that's kind of opening up a little bit. Our buyers, even through it all, have consistently, can we go see this house? Can we go see this house? And I feel like it's because there's been such a low inventory of homes that are going on the market now, that I think the buyers that we have, they're a little bit more like, hey, this is one that's come up. This is the first one that we've seen in a week. We got to go see it.
They feel more anxious than they did before.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this podcast up on that note, and I'm going to summarize it for you. But stay tuned, because I think we're going to hit this topic on our next podcast as well. Less inventory, less supply, equal demand creates actually a better market to sell your house, which sounds ridiculous. But right now what we're finding is our listings are getting the same or more attention that they were prior to this because of the lack of inventory. Now, contrary to that would be, let's say once this ends, the summer comes, a lot more sellers are going to list their houses. All those people that have been waiting to list are going to relist, and there's going to be an uptick in inventory. So if you're a buyer but you haven't found Mr. Perfect yet, hang in there, because it's coming. I really feel like, and I've had that case with, goodness, we've had a handful of buyers we've talked through this with, just wait it out. Don't feel like you have to settle, because the right thing will come. And there may be buying opportunities in other markets. So that's what y'all feel free to send us your questions. We'd love some active feedback. In, let's say, all of our second home markets, East Tennessee and the Smokies, Destin, Panhandle of Florida, 30A. Those are true vacation markets. Well,
totally.
Like in Florida, the governor has outlawed short-term rentals, which is a whole other topic.
Oh, beaches are closed. Yeah, I mean,
it's not even that you can't, if you could book and not get bookings, they don't even allow it. So a lot of those sellers are feeling the pinch now, a couple months into it. So there may be some more buying opportunities. We're not seeing like an aggressive push to that.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. We are your resource for everything through these economic times, whether it's good or bad. We'd weather both. And there's opportunities on both sides of it. You just need to know where to look and the tools to use, because as our market changes, which it does every day, we're going to be on the forefront of what that looks like to make sure that you get the best service available. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.